Morning. How about them Chiefs? So, there's some good people here. The rest of you folks got to get on the bandwagon here. Everybody didn't cheer. Hey, it's good to be with you this morning, and I know you have a long program and you're tired probably already and ready for your second breakfast. So I'm going to try to be brief. I've learned brevity has its place. I grew up in a family of pastors, and so I learned, that you have to be brief. My grandpa, on one Sunday, was preaching, and he always preached with he has a cane, and he kept his cane, and all of the grandkids had to sit on the front pew in cane distance from Grandpa. But on one Sunday, he's preaching, and over to his left there are the deacons, and one of them committed the worst sin you could commit. He fell asleep. And Grandpa, we all knew it was coming, and all the grandkids, I don't know what he's going to do, but he's going to do something. So he stopped in the middle of the sermon. We said, uh-oh. And he said, "Brother Rogers, wake up, Bill." And so Mr. Rogers said, "Well, Reverend Cleaver, why don't you wake him up? You put him to sleep." My goal is to speak and leave, and hopefully you'll be awake. I would first like to thank the Heartland Credit Union Association for their steadfast work and support of their membership and of course my constituents in Harry Truman's congressional district, the 5th District of Missouri. And among the stated core values of Heartland are exceeding expectations, embracing change, and serving with honesty and integrity. And this has been precisely my experience with them over the years. So I would like to thank them for all of their hard work and building credit unions into the very fabric of my congressional district. It was credit unions, including members of the Heartland Credit Union Association, that were among the very first that stepped up to the plate by offering zero interest and short-term loans to their membership as a result of the stupid idea of shutting down the federal government. We sometimes have people who practice unbelievable stupidity. My parents never allowed my 3 sisters and I to use the word stupid, but my daddy is not here, and I don't think this is televised, but it is absolutely stupid to shut down the federal government of the world's superpower. And at the very time when federal employees were trying to figure out how they were going to make it in the longest federal shutdown in history, the credit union stepped up to the plate. And I really have appreciation for that. That at a tough time, the credit unions were standing in the gap. And my son-in-law is a federal prosecutor, so when he came to ask me about marrying my only daughter, my concern was, working for the federal government, you're not going to make a lot of money, and they have government shutdowns, and so he called me just after the news broke that the government was going to be shutting down. And my inclination was to say, I tried to tell you 5 years ago that the government might shut down. What about my daughter? You know, you can make it somewhere else, but I'm concerned about my daughter. And the credit union was right there all over this country. And I hope you feel good about what you've done, because you made stupidity a little less painful on many of the American people. Now, perhaps most importantly, credit unions have offered unparalleled service to their membership during rocky times. Tough times stains the landscape of our country. And when you are in trouble financially, you're hoping that something will come through, that your ship will come through. And the credit unions have been that ship here in this country. The nonprofit structure leaves credit unions uniquely responsive to their members rather than shareholders. Within my home district alone, 1.7 million Missourians belong to a credit union, including myself. Nearly 70,000 Missouri families benefit from financial counseling and education services of credit unions. And Missouri credit union employees and volunteers have offered nearly 217,000 hours of financial literacy and counseling to the residents of the state of Missouri. Credit unions can be credited with creating nearly 12,000 jobs in Missouri, and they've offered nearly 25,000 small donor loans, over $4 billion in auto loans, and they've contributed over $8 billion to the Missouri economy. I have a cousin who came to me asking if I could give him a loan. I said give, because Herman Jr. has never paid me back. We grew up together. I'm not still, being bothered with it. But Herman Jr. started out, with a nickel back when we were 6, and I've never received any payment on any of this stuff. I'm not going to let it bother me in life. You have to move on. But Herman Jr. Came to me and told me that he had gotten a loan of $250 from, I guess I can't call the name of the place. It was one of those come get your loan companies. And I told him he would be paying on that loan for the rest of his life. And then his son and his grandchildren would be still paying on the loan. And so one of the vital roles that the credit unions play, frankly, is being able to give loans to people like Herman Jr. To prevent him from doing enormous economic damage to his own life. I've got to say to you that I am pleased that I can stand up and speak about credit unions and be accurate and truthful because I have seen the credit unions operate, and I know that we're struggling with some of the other financial institutions about trying to make smaller loans. People can't get it, and so what they'll do is go and get a loan paying 78% interest. And sometimes, they become bogged down in trying to repay loans and damages other components of their lives. As the chairman of the National Security, International Development and Monetary Policy Subcommittees of Financial Services, we have a full agenda for 2020. This includes cybersecurity, digital currency, and trafficking. Let me just tell you, this cryptocurrency issue is a very, very important issue. I just returned from Austria day before yesterday. All over the world, people are trying to figure out how to handle this whole cryptocurrency and whether or not we're giving people an opportunity to come in and wash money, that this may be a new way for people to move money around, and in some instances, it's not real money. It's just a little bubble up in the air. And we've got to give significant, I think, attention to this issue, including the credit unions. And given the dynamic international environment and seemingly mounting national security risks to our economy, I cannot guarantee that we're not going to have more invisible ways of moving money around. And one which has my immediate focus, but I had not anticipated earlier this year, is the coronavirus. During the Federal Reserve's biennial report to Congress 2 weeks ago, Chairman Powell highlighted that the virus poses a risk to global economic growth, and there will be very likely, and I quote, very likely some effects on the United States. We saw some of those pressures earlier this week with the reaction of equity markets on Monday in free fall, longing for days gone by, but the reality is that we are now in a new world. The world is so small, Bob Hope once said, you can hick in New York and cup in London. And that's not all good. Some of it is bad, as we're finding out. And so what my subcommittee has to do is figure out ways in which we can reduce the pain on the United States economy with the coronavirus moving across the globe. And we've got to be ready. We're not ready right now. The federal government is not ready to handle a pandemic. And hopefully we'll get there sometime soon, because it is uncertainty that damages the markets. People don't like uncertainty. They want to know with some certainty that these particular things are going to happen. And so I think that over the next few weeks, I advise you to pay close attention to what's going on, because the world economy is already impacted. China has already slowed down. In my congressional district, soybeans is a big deal. And when it started in January in this particular term, soybeans were about $10. They're down to $8. And one of the biggest consumers of American soybeans is China. And right now, that market is extremely shaky. And yes, the U.S. economy can be impacted. And this is a time for us, I think, to be smart. But I have confidence in the credit unions more than I have in other entities. And one of the reasons is that you guys are doing things that others are not doing. Credit unions, unlike some other financial institutions, I think, are ready for flexibility that we need. Let me just tell you what I want to leave you with, and then I'll leave. I'm gonna go back through that curtain. My real life, I'm a United Methodist minister, seminary trained. So, and back in the 1980s, I can remember clearly a man coming into the church telling me that he and his wife were having problems. And I said, what you need to do is go and, try to do the things you did when you were dating, create some excitement. And so about 5 weeks later, I hadn't heard from him, but he showed up and he said, you got to come out and get in the car. He said, I've been doing what you told me and it's working. And so I got in the car, and they lived about 6 blocks from the church. We went over to the house, and he had, I could see them in the back seat, 24 long stem red roses. And then he had a box of chocolates. And I kind of hit him on the back. I said, you're going straight. You're a good guy. You're going to make it. So we walked in the house, and he said, Sweetie, come downstairs. And she appeared at the top of the steps with her robe on and curlers in her hair. And he pulled the red roses out, and he said, here's red roses, and here are chocolates. And she fainted. And so we ran up the steps, And he's holding her head. She's on the floor. He said, "What's wrong, sweetie?" And she said, "You come home drunk, and Reverend Cleaver had to bring you home." People are not accustomed to people being good for nothing. For nothing, just plain good. And the little Billy is tearing up the upstairs, and his mother's downstairs trying to clean up, and every now and then something would happen. And so all of a sudden, it became quiet. And all of you parents, you know that when it gets quiet, damage is being done. So she rushed upstairs, and it was real. He was trying to flush the teddy bear down the toilet. Water's running everywhere. So she takes him downstairs after she mops up the water, and then she's in the living room, and she hears the cat squealing, and Billy is trying to put the cat in the microwave. So she comes and saves the cat, puts the cat in the garage, and unlike all of us who are patient with our children, she grabbed him and she started shaking him. She said, "Billy, why don't you be good?" And he said, "Okay, Mommy, I'll be good for some gummy bears. I need a honey bun, and I need some peanuts." And she said, "No, Billy, I want you to be good like your daddy." And he said, "What?" He said, "I want you to be good for nothing." Look, credit unions, unlike other financial institutions, do not issue stock and don't pay dividends to outside stockholders. Members own credit unions. You're not in this like some of the banks I have to deal with, where they're trying to pay dividends, and the greater dividends they can pay, the better the CEOs get paid and everybody else. Credit union people, like those of you here, are good for nothing. And I hope you celebrate it. Being good simply because people need what you have to offer. Being good not because of some great dividend that you're going to earn, but because you can actually help people and you can help save families. You are, in my estimation, a good-for-nothing organization. I'm glad to be here with you. God bless you.